Anthropophagic.
Pophagic.
It means cannibals.
Ah.
Welcome to the edge of nowhere. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 47th episode of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the Simon to my Garfunkel, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
Good. You just did that so you could be part of that super group of one-hit people who aren't talented.
I was going to call you Darkness because you're my old friend. Hello, Darkness.
Hello, Dark Roast, my old friend. I've come to caffeinate again. Yeah.
Ooh.
How about that?
That's lovely. I am drinking some hearty cold brew over here. So
we start that way. We tend to.
I tend to start on caffeine and end on beer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I sound different in the second half of the episodes.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
I go up and then I come back down. Anywho,
goes up.
This is a Moz episode today.
Down. Filipino folklore today.
Filipino folklore, very nice.
Yes,
I do have a couple things to do first.
Okay.
First, the actual business. If you have a chance, just take a quick second and hit those happy fun buttons on whatever platform you're on. Leave us a rating and review if you have a minute. We really do appreciate it and love getting some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. I also have some old business. This is something I have not told Moz yet. He doesn't know this is coming. It might be a little bit old news in the old business for the listeners. So Moz, I was editing Cryptoid Palooza, which was my last episode. It's a little bit ago on our timeline because we just had an interview and side trails in between. But I got this weird distortion. Listeners might have noticed there's all these little blips of static.
You got an EVP in the middle of the
kind of stuff. Words were echoing. Like it was random. I was trying to figure out what was causing it. Like, is it when we're talking at the same time? Is it me? Is it you? Is it when we're loud? Is it when we're soft? Totally random points.
Nice.
That one little word would fuzz out and echo itself once.
Wow.
I cleaned it up best I could, but there's all these little farty static spots throughout the episode, right? So I'm thinking maybe the setup was wrong. Our wires were too bungled up, or there was something in the background. It's almost like these builds up of static and then a quick little Then I did the side trail, and when we recorded the side trail, literally we recorded the episode, we took like a 5-minute break. I didn't turn anything off. Setup was exactly the same. We just got up from the table for 5 minutes, came back, started recording again. Side trail was fine. So my question is, was there a Glimmerman in the room with us listening to our Cryptoid Palooza episode and affecting our audio with its electrostatics? And then when we were done talking about them, they left?
That's, again, a trope that whatever you talk about seems to know about it.
It's weird, man.
Yeah.
I was kind of upset about it. Our audio got messed up somehow, but I wasn't... I was thinking it was just a technical issue. But then I start doing the side trail. I'm like, wait, why is the side trail not messed up?
But none of the words were anything of you could.
No, and it was just random
pattern,
little spots.
No theme,
no.
Well, cool.
I couldn't figure out. The only thing I could do, I do still have the raw version of it. The one thing I would think is go back and write down the words it's affecting in order and see if there's a message there.
I thought you would have done that already.
I did not do that. I haven't had time. I had the thought, but I haven't had time to actually follow through.
Let's see.
I'll do it on the season break. We're almost done with season 1 here.
There you go. Something comes of it. Let us know.
During the break, I will see if I can come back with something on that for season 2.
I have a quick old business.
Okay.
A couple episodes, you cocaine bared me. I don't know.
Cocaine bear.
I wake up like in a cold sweat now. Like I could be cocaine bared. I don't. This has changed the project on so many levels for me. I don't know. Like, don't cocaine bear me anymore. Okay.
I'll trade you a cocaine bear for a Kokomo.
Wow. Oh, I don't Kokomo anymore?
No more Kokomos, no more cocaine bears.
What if I told you I wrote a little song about Kokomo at the end of this one?
There's got to be some cocaine bear.
Dang it. All right, we'll moving forward.
It's all in your court now, Moz.
Yes. Well, tonight we're deep diving Philippine folklore. Really get you in the mood here. We're going to do that today. It's going to be overall folklore. Then we're going to spotlight the Manananggal next time, which might only anger it. But from Dr. Ramos's work, The Creatures from the Philippine Lower Mythologies, I wanted to start off with a quote to get us in the mood, a mood quote.
Okay.
Much feared by many Philippine villagers are the trees that surround barrio cemeteries. Nobody planted those trees, but owing to the collective fear of the Babal, Kelag, and Segbin, and the ghoulish aspects of the Aswang and the Buso, they have been left unmolested and so have attained awesome proportions. Since people fear to pass under them, thickets grow under them and set them apart, further enhancing their forbidding presence. It is these trees that help touch the children's imagination. Very interesting. It is more on the mature level side because
So that was trees.
trees around the cemetery, just bringing us kind of a little mood as to what we're going to be getting into. It's a spooky place. The Philippines can be a spooky place.
Oh, I'm sure.
As we will find out.
touched on a number of things down there already. Came up a lot in the Bat Squatch episode.
Yep. This is an archipelago consisting of thousands of islands in Southeast Asia. We'll be discussing some surrounding areas as well, as we usually spiral outward into the world.
Oh, I thought we spiraled downward on this show.
Yeah. That's true.
Sorry, pardon me, Moz.
That's true. Back to caffeine and all
I've
that.
had a little too much coffee today. I apologize for that.
But the monster capital, or more specifically, some of those Aswang hotspots I came across, was Capiz and the Luzon region, as well as the Pinay region and the town of Igira. So if you're sitting down with your travel agent right now, you're from the past. They have Travelocity gnomes now for that, so you can go to places like
Kokomo.
There you go. I guess there's some Kokomo references.
I
So
hear you can hunt cocaine bears in Kokomo.
Dang you. We're going to work this out. We're going to get through this as a team. But again, some of these areas were once governed by a female shaman class. The most common names from two of those bigger groups are the Catalonans and the Bavilayans. As for those Aswang hotspots, either this is where these beasties reside in a higher proportion to the population, or more likely the occupying Spanish needed to demonize them a bit because powerful women once resided in these places, so they didn't need to be knocked down a peg.
Turning the hag into the demon again.
Yeah, there's also some Scully Muggle versions we'll get to at some point. But is anyone surprised that one of the spookiest areas on the planet has more of the shamanic energy that got stepped on by colonizers? Fun fact.
There we go. That goes all the way back to episode 3 right there.
Yep. An acre per acre, the Philippine region has got to be one of the spookiest places on Earth. When researching this area, you can really see the folklore impacting from the Hindu, the Muslim, the Asian influences. It's kind of a hodgepodge, which makes for some pretty strange cryptids, even by our normal Monster Lore Tour weirdness standards.
Right, kind of a mashup of hoodoo, voodoo kind of stuff.
Yep. And tonight we cover all types of Aswang, cannibal spirits, witches, viscera-sucking fiends, and fat-bellied gnomes, who we all know what, Jeremy?
I'm one.
They make the rock and world go round.
Fat-bellied gnomes?
Yeah, isn't that the song? I think that's the song. I thought. But this is a group of islands gripped by fear. I don't know about today, but as in right this second, but fear still lingers in the Filipino air. These truly disturbing folklores ebbed into the modern era. Some sources say as high as 87% of the populations still think Aswang are lurking in their hills.
87%?
That is just one, I can, I guess, find the quote if I need to, but, I've heard different, I don't know if it's that high, but
I don't believe polls anymore anyway.
Yeah, the point being, a lot of people still do, especially if you get into the rural, remoter regions outside the urban areas.
Right.
There's a lot of belief still lingering.
That's a huge percent, though, for anyone any group of people to believe in
anything,
something.
right?
Anything, yeah.
Exactly.
So that's impressive for something like that.
Yep. And before we Aswang, though, there's some cool mythos from the region. During any eclipse, like many places, this region believed the moon was being swallowed by a monster, in this case a mysterious fish, the Bacanawa, Baconawa. It's why they make noise during the eclipse to scare off the fish so the moon returns, and this is common in a lot of parts of
That's very
the
similar
world
to
in
the
Asia.
whole sky whale kind of thing.
Yep, eats the moon, and everyone has to make noise to kind of save the moon. I'm going to do that next eclipse. I'm going to kind of bring that back.
You're actually, for the part of the world we're in, the old lore is that you're supposed to almost ignore the eclipse. It's a moment of reset. So, like, you're not supposed to be working. Like, basically, no sleeping, no working. Like, basically, you're supposed to, like, sit somewhere quiet and don't look at the eclipse. Don't look at it. And just kind of, like,
Fully reboot. Yeah.
reboot. Like,
Yeah.
just stop what you're doing and just be still during the eclipse.
That's the opposite of making a lot of noise.
But they also specifically say don't sleep. Like it's not like a shutdown like that. Like it's almost like a meditation thing. Like you should sit and meditate during the eclipse and just like turn off everything. And then when the sun starts coming back,
turn back on.
You reboot your energies.
And then you have the updates installed message you get and all that stuff.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Well, so these guys are almost the opposite. They look at it and scream at it and scare it away.
Like I said, it's a very common. There's variations of that across Asia, pretty much.
Okay.
You know, but there's this tale from the Moro tradition I found in M.C. Cole's 1916 Philippine Folktales. Starts off with 4 monsters ravaging the before times kind of thing. The Curita, the Tarabusa, an enormous bird called the Pa, and another big bird on Mount Gurion that could see in all directions.
So it's like instead of the 4 horsemen, it's the 4 birdmen.
Yeah, well, there's one is just a terrible creature with many limbs. That's the Curita. The Tarabusa is an ugly giant. The other 2 are birds. But
the first one sounds like a Cthulhu.
Yeah, pretty much. The king Indarapatra begs his powerful hero brother Sulaiman to destroy all monsters. The king gives him a fine sword and sends him on his way, where the hero quickly makes mincemeat of Curita, that first many-limbed monster. Second monster, Tarabusa, puts up a better fight, tearing off whole trees to beat back the hero, but in the end the monster too succumbs to the sword. The third monster, Pa, that big bird, swoops down on him. At the last second he sees it, he turns, he cuts off the wing, but the severed wing lands on him, killing him. So there's still one monster left, and the hero's dead. King sees that a designated plant dies. Now there's a connection between a plant in this region. You have a plant when someone goes away, and if the plant dies, you lost your loved one.
Like in Lord of the Rings.
Similar, yeah. Yeah, it's the tree, right.
Right, the tree's dying because the kingdom's dying.
Correct. Same kind of connection. So basically, the king sees the designated plant die and realizes his brother has died. The king sets out to find what happened, finds his brother under the severed wing, but he also finds this jar. Jars are also weird in the Philippines. They talk, they have powers, there's kind of a jinn thing going on, reminiscent of the Middle Eastern influences.
The genie lamp.
And the king pours the contents of the jar onto the bones. His brother springs back to life, immediately marches off to slay the last giant bird. Then when that's done, the king hunts down the only people who survived the monster's wrath, and they emerge from a cave to reseed the population. So the origin mythos of this area, at least one of them, is really monster-oriented, right
Very
from kind of the get-go.
Yeah.
And the full account again, M.C. Cole, 1916, Philippine Folktales. I'll have that in the show notes.
Why is there always a resurrection?
Yeah, well, that's part of the,
It's such a shamanic thing, I guess.
Yep, the bones.
And it's been around forever because all these stories
have the same themes.
Same themes.
Dr. Ramos separates the ghosts, ancestral spirits, and the deities into what he calls the higher mythologies. So we'll be talking about them first before we get to the Aswang, which is part of the lower. These are often referred to as the Anitas, the Anito, or in some regions the Divertas or Diwatas, intimate objects with power, like maybe those jars.
Okay.
Dr. Ramos also trims off any talk of the devil because the Christians brought this concept to the region. So pre-16th century, we don't find anything Satan or devil-like. So he kind of puts that in a separate category as well.
Yeah, because it didn't exist for him before that.
Yep. But we will be touching on that higher stuff, but we will be spending most of our time slumming around the lower Philippine mythologies, which Dr. Ramos breaks down into 12 Moz-style buckets. Demons, dragons, dwarves, elves, ghouls, giants, merfolk, ogres, vampires, visceral suckers, witches, werewolves, which are really were-dogs in this area because there's no wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And the Aswang actually encompasses a broad group of these creatures who, for the most part, like to feed on your parts. Part 2 for those parts of your parts will
Yikes.
be... Yeah, exactly. The term Aswang, according to Dr. Maximus Ramos, one of the area folklore gurus, predominantly comes from the Tagalog, the Bicol, and the Visayan groups. And Ramos claims that the word seems to come from Aswang, A-S-U-A-S-U-A-N, the likeness of a dog.
Oh, so these are dogmen kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, they're all... Well, some of them, again, vampires, ogres, there's a whole merfolk.
Oh, so they're like all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of critters and Farmer Vincent's fritters in the Filipino folklore, but we'll get to that. But that
like fritters.
Again, that's Maximus de Ramos. The word asawang also means a person who practices witchcraft. Surprise there. Again, find the monster, another regional shamanic being of power, and voila, they share the similar name. But it's still always unclear if they are the culprits. So the Aswang are the witches, and the Aswang are the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, geez, Godzilla raised Tokyo again. I wonder if the nearby Godzilla people had anything to do with it.
Yeah, right.
But I laugh, but we don't talk about this. Like, why are we thinking... I don't associate Aswang with shaman immediately, but Aswang means witch or shaman,
and you've
Aswang
literally
means monster. I don't
all
know.
Season you've gone from region to region, finding the local version of this.
Yeah,
there's some cool ones. I don't know why the Tlingit stand out to me so much with the Ottermen, but it's everywhere, and they do all have that same thing. And in the magic person, the shaman or whatever they want to call them, in that place, the name for them is always almost exactly the same as it is for the local monster.
And you have to call them to help get rid of it.
Yeah,
it really does ring of that. It's the brother-in-law and the it's the monster. And
what
you
is,
call them. It's
what's the dragon movie where the dragon and the knight have the deal? Is that Dragonheart? No, that's not what. Maybe there's one where the dragon and the knight, like the dragon comes in, starts causing trouble, the knight shows up, I'll kill him for you, and they like fake its death.
Yes.
And then he gets paid and they move on.
I've totally seen that, yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the magic man and the monster
are in on it
are either
somehow.
the
They're
same,
in cahoots.
It might be the same person, a Superman Clark Kent sort of situation.
Yeah.
Or they're like they're teamed up like gangsters and running a con on people or something. It's crazy.
I think it could be both. I honestly think it can be both.
Yeah.
But the etymology for the word Aswang itself seems to come from asin, A-S-I-N, salt, and bawan, garlic. It's items used to kill these creatures. So the Aswang is named like, well, if you called Superman Kryptonite Man, or werewolf Silver Bullets, or vampires Cross Stake Sunrises.
That makes sense.
Which is a really good Eagles song,
because then you're telling people how to deal with them in the name.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
But it's not a good name for them. I mean, I don't want to be called what would... high cholesterol man.
Well, I mean, if the vampire, somebody called vampires garlic heart steaks.
Yeah, Cross Stake Sunrise is what I went with, but that's
Cross
good.
Stake Sunrises, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. But the other theory floated in 1909 by Isabelo de los Reyes is that the root comes from the Sanskrit asura, which we've talked about, those demons. So there's a lot. Again, it's a mishmash of areas coming in, mishmash of different folks, a mishmash of different legends. I did have a funny research moment that I have to share because I did hit up the U.S. newspaper archives that you sent me, and the word Aswang, our main cryptid tonight, only appears once anywhere in the U.S. pre-'69. I have to read you the account because it's just perfect. 1903 edition of The Sun, caption, Brooklyn theaters, Wang, one of the DeWolf comic opera successes, will be sung this week by the company now playing at the Orpheum. John J. Martin will be seen as Wang. Had to share. Sometimes research kids is just so worth it. Yeah, and that concludes tonight's episode.
It's not always what you're looking for on those searches there. Yeah, I've had similar issues.
And the history of the first people of the Philippines remains sketchy and murky. The first inhabitants may have been pygmies from Africa who arrived some 40,000 years ago. Or about 2,500 years ago, the Malays arrived from Malaysia, but no one knows exactly how. I'm going with jet skis or hydrofoil. That's my final answer.
By sea?
Yeah.
Like people have been making
boats. But how
boats.
by sea? Hydrofoils or jet skis?
Well,
are
they
the two
made
choices.
some boats. Like,
Yeah, no, I know.
come on.
Kon-Tiki stuff.
I don't like how people think that humans haven't been making boats for
Yeah. Read
ever.
some Graham
For
Hancock.
forever. How
These
hard
kids
is it
need
to
to read
float?
some Graham Hancock, for crying out loud.
Seriously.
But the locals slaughtered Spanish explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1521, but this did not stop the Spanish from eventually colonizing a good number of these islands, which of course involved the Christianization of locals. In 1946, the Philippines obtained their independence, and perhaps more importantly, in 2024, they were featured in not one, but 2 podcast parts on the prestigious Monster Lore Tour podcast.
Wow, good for them.
Good for them. When the Spaniards arrived, the Filipinos were pretty much typical animists, worshipping nature deities and their ancestors or nature spirits and the like, while tiptoeing around a number of darker energies, spirits, monsters, and creatures of the night, the Yuj. Again, their shaman were predominantly women, aka so it was a matriarchal type society, or at least the women were held more as equals, I would say. I've read different accounts of this. So gender equality equals a degeneration into evil spirits, mayhem, and cannibalism.
That's what a lot of them will tell you.
I'm kidding. Yeah, that's what they try to do.
That's what they'll tell you.
But kidding. Actually, the Spanish get blamed, and rightly so, for some of this nasty monster business. But per Bankoff 1999, the malign magic remained commonplace, especially in rural regions before and after colonization, for at least 4 centuries. So it's always something there. It seems to change under the colony's oppression or whatever. It seems to morph into something.
Well, I mean, the
often
whole culture
darker.
starts to change, right? When you are suddenly under a thumb like that.
Yep.
Of an oppressive colonizer, as much as you're going to try to hold on to your culture, it's still going to change and morph and mutate into something different under the new pressure.
Well, they always also reduce the shaman class to sorcerers and witches, and they're demonized, right. and it changes the beliefs of the people when they become Christians, because now these things that were once more neutral or guardian spirits or entities from the land become more darker and associated with Satan and whatnot.
Yeah, it starts overloading the energies there with fear and hate and things like that weren't there before.
Yep. And back to we're still on the higher mythologies for this region. Again, includes deities, which I will touch on, ghosts and ancestral spirits, or what some Filipinos refer to as the Anito. Let's start with the Anito and the ghosts. You might split them up by calling the Anito or ancestral or helper spirits, and the ghosts are more of the evil or malevolent spirits. But even that gets a little murky. It really depends on, I guess, the context. The Anito can be summoned to heal or to protect, but the overarching theme from my research, they do seem mostly malevolent. Many stories overlap with the monster lore from the lower mythologies. They're said to haunt the land from late afternoon to dawn, preferring more remote and spooky regions. So I hope they're getting a shift differential or something. But places of death or murder are also popular. Many regions of the Philippines have the same dealios as the Navajo. If someone dies in a structure, you abandon it, which is,
Yeah.
But these are on a spectrum again, because you can find benevolent guardian spirits in like anthills or termite mounds or mountains or waterfalls. But there's good and bad in every tree or every cave. But again, things seem darker most of the time when you encounter these things. To the Tao culture of nearby Taiwan, these ancestral spirits are part of an afterlife kind of correctional program, monitoring taboos, punishing laziness, called Malma, forcing a number of societal guidelines, like ectoplasm into this cup, please, kind of thing. But there's these little wood carvings.
The ecto police.
Yeah, pretty much. These little carvings called Taos I came across, Taotao, supposed to represent the Anito. Many rituals and taboos surround them. It's the usual be nice to them, honor the land, follow the rules kind of thing.
Right.
One type of Diwata can be plants. Some are more place-oriented spirits, or they haunt an inanimate object again, like we talked about. They can be responsible for more natural phenomenon, or kind of more like fairy spirits. Magical spirits of the elements of the land, nature ancestors, they all kind of mishmash to me. These vary from tribe to tribe, but they all fall into the Anito bucket, which may be the higher, nicer mythologies, but most areas, again, seems kind of scary to me. The Anito seems to come in 2 major buckets. Bucket 1, bound landscape or guardian spirits like genie loci, trapped in a jar or confined to a tract of land. Bucket 2, unbound spirits, which are more fairy, elf, or shamanic helping spirits or demon class.
So it's very guardian spirit sort of thing where they're not even a physical form, really. They're just infusing a place. And they enforce the rules of the place.
Well, Bucket 1 is that group that is bound to an area.
Right.
Bucket 2 is unbound, and they're these free-flowing
so they're not even to an area. Okay.
Yeah, like a Wendigo.
I thought unbound meant just like not bound to an object, but not bound to even an area.
Right.
Like they can go wherever the hell they want.
And I because I knew you'd struggle with this, I made you a pop quiz to help you.
Well, no, that helped, actually. I get that much better now.
No, you'll get it even better after this quiz.
Okay.
You just say bound or unbound. Are you ready?
Okay.
Prometheus.
Unbound.
No, Prometheus bound.
Prometheus bound?
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking Anne Rand?
Yeah.
Or who wrote that?
No, that's Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged.
It's Shelley.
Who wrote the Prometheus one?
Prometheus Bound. That's Percy Shelley, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Superman. Bound or unbound?
Unbound.
Correct. It's a comic book. Frankenstein.
Bound?
No, unbound. Roger Corman Classic. You have to get Roger Corman Classics right in this group. Django.
Unchained.
Yes, but the answer was bound or unbound, so you got that wrong. I pretty much said whatever you said. I was not going to give you credit for that, so that was kind of a trap that you fell right into. Maz.
Bound.
No, he's unbound.
Oh, no, I'm about to tie you up and throw you in the closet.
Okay. Alrighty, moving on. Of night, I also read somewhere that the worship and offerings to the Anito or Dewatas, or what Ramos calls the higher mythologies, definitely waned in recent years. So their belief in them waned, but the Aswang, as we said, their favorite area spook, has obviously not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's another post-colony moment, probably. Yeah. He wrote that in 1990, but I still think that trend is probably true to some degree. I found a cool study from a researcher, Lebrecht Funk, who spent time with the Tao in Lanyu, an island southeastern corner of Taiwan. Here's some tidbits I picked up from that study. There's a group of ambiguous ancestral spirits from the unbound bucket called Inapawan, Inapowan, dangerous beings to anyone they encounter because they can steal a person's soul. Ooh. Funk also talks about the link to anxiety and such encounters, how these sightings seem to be solo witnessed, not shared by a group. So the tendency is the Philippines is you're alone. They don't want you alone in the woods. You go alone in the woods, you're susceptible to these creatures, these visitations, these sightings. That's not all of them. We have ones with multiple multiple witnesses.
Okay.
They tend to be more solo there. Funk also points out that the quarreling or other negative emotions can drive away the guardian ancestral spirits and draw in the more malevolent ones. So you can kind of...
That makes sense, yeah.
Yes.
All that extra hate and fear and all that.
Yeah. And it does bring a little bit of the Azuras, the Asuras, the Azuras, those demons that we were talking about earlier from the more Asian-y kind of mythos. The Buddhist also tells the demons and hungry ghosts of Asia. It kind of sounds like a lot of these different buckets kind of get blurred. So, and that from entanglements between Dao people and Anito of Lanyu Island. Again, that will be in the show notes from Lebrecht Funk. That brings us to our first reading.
For me?
Yep, it's Lebrecht Funk, and it's just bringing this part of that study home.
Anito are by no means restricted to Lanyu and are also found in many parts of the Philippines and other neighboring areas. ... If they are the spirits of one's own dead, Anito may even be benevolent, blessing their descendants and assisting them in times of hardship. However, even good-natured Anito sometimes attack their nearest living relatives. Anito, then, are ambiguous creatures, monstrous in their intentions, through their bodies visible to young children whose eyes are said to be much purer than those of adults, and their placement on the margins of human settlements, as well as in their cosmological positioning. So there's stuff we talk about all the time. Kids see them better, and they're on the edge, on the margins, as they say here, of human settlements.
Yep.
What do they mean by cosmological positioning, though?
Well, I think their cosmological positioning, again, or more on the higher mythologies, so there is something ancestral and helper spirit or something, good about it.
So again, like a higher level of being kind of thing.
Yeah, the higher mythologies can be good or can be bad depending, again, on how you approach them. If you make the ancestors angry, they're going to come as more malevolent. You can turn gods into devils, as we've found time and time again.
Gotcha.
But, they're all positioned in the center, in a way, of the medicine wheel. You got your portal guardians, you have your good ones and your bad ones. You have the Aswang, maybe the more snake-like, and you've got your Thunderbirds, which are maybe the more Anito, and they can be both good and bad or ugly, though.
I mean, it really, I'm going to have to write this down in a real way at some point, but it really seems like everything comes down to nothing is inherently good or evil. It's just a matter of what vibration it is vibrating at.
Yeah.
What frequency you're vibrating at, I guess I should say.
Dr. Ramos and I read the Aswang complex and his, it was creatures of the lower mythologies. He struggled, as we do, too. He came up with that categories and buckets, but the buckets just, everything bleeds and everything else. And we're going to get to why I think that is in today, actually. So we will get to that. Hold that thought, I guess.
Okay.
I see in Ramos's categories, elves, dwarves, and dragons are relegated to the lower mythologies, the monster section. But they can also be associated with nature spirits. So again, I think that's one of the areas that kind of blends into a little bit of both. Or as Jeffrey Cohen says, monsters defy categorization. Always a hybrid outside of scientific categories, blurring boundaries, and never going on the newspaper like good little monsters, that kind of thing. But we need bigger buckets, Jeremy. Like we need, bigger dots to follow sometimes.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, even that one.
To carry our buckets.
What happened on that? He was just dumping a bucket of chum in the water when that happened.
He was.
He needed a bigger bucket.
He did.
So you got to learn something.
Lots of chum for a shark that big.
Yeah. So see that? It all comes back to Roy Scheider. But ancestral spirits range from good, more helpful entities, to more astral law enforcement specters, to outright malevolent spirits. But that depends on the person and the reason and the paranormal harassment. It's all rather case by case, and like you said, I think vibrations and like attracts like.
Because they do shift. When everything's good and everything's in balance and things are going the way they're supposed to, then the guys with the power are doing good for the community and helping the people along and keeping everything together. But then when things go bad and the vibrations turn bad and everything fills up with hate and fear, those guys turn into sisters.
Great segue to our lower mythologies.
There you go.
We're now shifting into what most of you hear for, the monsters. So out of the 12 Ramos buckets from the lower mythos, a.k.a. monsters, about half or more can be considered Aswang, because it is a bit of an umbrella term. And yes, there's one shaped like an umbrella called the Hobot. I'm not kidding. I guess best
like
defense for that is to have an umbrella stand or something. Yeah. So I asked, what if a Hobot graduates from Umbrella Academy and then gets a job with that evil company from Resident Evil? Huh?
Yikes.
I know. Just poppins that one in there kind of thing.
Yikes.
Ramos covers a story from a cemetery of the Hobot that the thing kind of attacks a man, tries to lift him off the ground, and he has to fight this thing off with a knife. Seriously.
I'm still trying to get my brain around it.
Yeah. So again, these categories are demons, dragons, dwarves, elves, ghouls, giants, merfolk, ogres, vampires, visceral suckers, witches, and werewolves, which are actually were-dogs because there's no wolves. The visceral suckers are more the Aswang with the tongue. That kind of.
Could you just say lycanthropes?
Yeah,
I guess that implies
it does
wolf
say
too,
wolf too.
Still implies wolf.
Implies wolf.
Right. Therianthropes.
Yep.
But then that's not specific enough, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have the canine, half canine, half man. But case in point, the Hobot would be a flying Aswang, which doesn't fit into any of these categories because it's an umbrella that flies. So you see how hard it starts to get. But Dr. Maximus Ramos had his work cut out for most of the sections. And frankly, Chunk...
I have Mary Poppins related questions, but I will hold those for later.
Thank you. But most of the section, and frankly, a chunk of this episode comes from his Aswang complex and Filipino folklore and his creatures of Philippine lower mythology, which is why Dr. Maximus Ramos is our obvious winner for our Mad Cujos Award.
Oh, Mad Cujos, doctor.
Down boy!
Well done, sir.
But overall, Aswang, before we hit Ramos's Dirty Dozen breakdown, except Ernest Borgnine, because he was Mermaid Man, and he might seek revenge as, a bikini bottom merfolk being. He doesn't talk about Mermaid Man in his books, but I'm sure he's there.
All right, I'm
somewhere.
going to say it since you did that. If Mary Poppins was a shaman, I think we know the secret to her flying umbrella.
Yeah. What is it?
She had one of these creatures, man.
Oh, she had a hobot.
Yeah.
It wasn't, just as a yak.
Yeah. She was
Well
yacked
done,
with
sir.
a hobot,
I
and
don't
she
think
was
that's
flying
bad.
around on it like an umbrella.
That's not usually when you say you're going to say something dumb. That was actually good. So
Mary Poppins is a shaman.
Well
Add
done.
that to your cartoon theory there, Moz.
As a reward, you get to read your second reading. This from Anito, Anum, Creatures and Beings of Filipino Folklore, from Tumblr.com.
You reward my effort with work. That's very American.
No good deed will go unpunished,
Yes,
sir.
very true. Very true. Yikes. Distinct from ordinary cannibals. Is that a thing? Ordinary cannibals?
Well, yeah. You're just
Okay.
run-of-the-mill lectors.
That's a hell of a start for a reading. Okay, let me try that again. Distinct from ordinary cannibals, these are men and women who prey on humans using supernatural abilities. Most appear as normal humans by day, but at night they turn into terrifying monsters. Some don't attack humans, but prefer to steal and eat corpses. Others could sever their upper bodies at the waist and leave the lower half, flying in the night sky to hunt for prey. The Manangal. Oh, that's next week, right?
Yep.
I'm excited. There are those who don't prey on humans at all, but use witchcraft and forbidden knowledge to harm their enemies. Aswang Nagala, which means wandering Aswang, a psychic vampire. It feeds directly on the energy of sick, weary, stressed, or dying persons. It appears very human, with some working in hospitals to feed on the patients. Sometimes it feeds on the life force of the fetus inside an expectant mother's womb.
Content warning tonight.
Yikes. Aswang na Lipad. It is distinct from other flying aswangs because it keeps its human form and does not need wings to fly. After taking its clothes off, it applies under its armpits a green ointment made of herbs and fat before rising into the night. It rides the current as though swimming on its back in search of a fresh corpse. Finding one, it takes only the liver and swiftly departs. It is never known to feed on living men, although reported cases of dead farm animals with missing livers have been blamed on the Aswang na Lipad. Aswang sa Kalibonan, which means Aswang of the forest, an ancient hairy aswang in the Visayas that lives away from humans and resides in the deepest part of the forest. It keeps a lot of black chicks, which it uses to turn normal humans into aswangs.
Again, that from Anito, Anum, Creatures and Beings of Filipino Folklore. It will be in the show notes. I'm going to just talk about those three groups real quick. So the Aswang Nagala, you kind of got this wandering Aswang. It's more of a psychic vampire, or the Koryak we discussed from Arctic Shapeshifters, the Colin Robinson of the lower Filipino mythologies, if you're a What We Do in the Shadows fan. Then there's the Aswang na Lipad, which is tonight served with a wonderful cream sauce, and tonight's special on our Wolfman by now. Basically, they are the airborne pathogens, the night flyers, like the Manangal, which we'll be really deep diving next week. But they're the masters, the master vampires like Naja, Nandor, or Laszlo. And the last group, the Aswang sa Kalibonan, these are they remind me of the creature teachers we've been talking about, little hairy things that are now recruiting. So they're evil. They're kind of recruiting the dark side to Aswang, but they're the opposite of the folks who are, we theorized in episode 1 of Skin
Walkers
were actually recruiting their own and how that happened. And in some ways, this is giving you an opportunity to look at something, what would go out and try to make the next generation of Aswang is this group, this third group.
In it keeps a lot of black chicks, which it turns.
There's a chicken.
Uses
We're going to
to
get to
turn
that.
normal human.
There's a little black chicken that they have to swallow.
Like a little peahen sort of thing.
And it will be part of the process of transitioning into an Aswang. And actually, that's the next.
That's very voodoo-y.
Yes.
Sacrificing the chicken and all that.
You're gonna see how voodoo it gets in a minute. But basically, there's three main ways to become an Aswang. One is heredity. It's a family trait. 2, eating food that the Aswang has licked or spit on, especially when you talk about the canines. Or 3, swallowing this particular black chicken voluntarily or involuntarily. And that is kind of the main 3 ways to become an Aswang in this region.
I licked all the slices of that pizza before I brought it in, Maz.
Man, and you've got like
you belong to me now.
That's terrific. See, this is how it happens, kids. So be careful out there.
Real life applications.
Yeah, spittily applications. The Aswang complex itself, as described by Dr. Maximus Ramos in Aswang complex, is this shape-shifting creature, sometimes male, usually female, who climbs on top or under your house, raised off the jungle floor, by the way. They raise the structures to
keep
them. They got
the crawl space kind of thing.
Yeah, and then this thread-like tubular tongue extends through the crack or into the dwelling to feed on the viscera. That's the viscera sucker class. Sounds kind of reminiscent about the skin.
Walkers.
Again.
Yeah, with the sprinkling the crushed baby powder down your chimney and stuff. Poisoning your house to make you sick.
Yes. They either make you sick or they feed on you. That's the 2 themes of the lower mythology attacks kind of thing.
They make you sick and then feed on your sickness.
Either or.
Ooh.
You know. But
eat my sickness.
Exactly. But on that shapeshifter front, shape-shifting is a common trope for almost anything from the higher or lower mythologies. I also gleaned from our primary Ramos sources that oversized creatures are believed to be Aswang. So if they get a big pig, you get a big cat, you get a big anything.
Just the giant thing.
The giantness of it. Per Ramos's book, The Aswang Complex, there's some major themes that keep surfacing as well. They tend to like chase an Aswang from in or around the house, like someone sees this thing and then they're kind of chasing it away. Presumably it's trying to sicken or feed on a loved one. And it kind of shape-shifts into a dog or a pig as it's running, so it kind of shape-shift into other animals and runs away. These fiends prefer the sneak attack to the open confrontation, but they do have the habit, just like Dogman here in the U.S., of intentionally shifting in front of an audience, especially if someone's alone in the woods. But most of the time they are a target of like a single individual. Unless they're fleeing, then they tend to like shift into something to get away better. But everybody sees it.
Sure.
The villagers manage to injure the thing, cutting off its tongue during the attack or stabbing it with the bolo, the sharpened bamboo stick. Someone in the neighborhood often has the same wound the next day. It's that common wolfman trope.
Oh, yeah, because they keep the wound when they shift back.
Yep, and it's not uncommon for a family member to turn in their fiend when they discover what Uncle Bob has been doing with his evening. So sometimes it just becomes, the family member follows the person leaving the house and goes, oh man, he's one of them. Also note, these things are compelled to feed. Once they become one voluntarily or involuntarily, they sicken if they don't feed. So they have this disgusting menu plan that they have to kind of stick to. And besides the Busa Ogre class, they do run in packs. And we are going to get a Monongol story with a big flock of these things.
Yikes.
Exactly. But generally they're like wolves. They're lone wolf kind of creatures in general.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? With the liver part especially reminds me of the orcas.
You mean the way wolf orcas?
Orcas will kill sharks and just eat their liver.
Yeah, well, that's
like
a
literally
delicacy.
just eat the liver, and leave the whole rest of the carcass.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
Now that's going to eventually, when they knock over boats, they're just going to eat the liver out of the people that fall off the boats.
Once they figure out our anatomy, they will.
Yeah. Hey, they got livers too.
Yeah.
But the other side of the Aswang complex involves all the taboos and rituals surrounding the recently deceased. They have to do all this stuff to keep their loved one from falling into the hands or mouths of a variety of ghoulish creatures who can smell the dead a mile away. It's particularly tricky because they can use magic to transform the body into a doppelganger so they can make off with the actual body. It's really weird.
Oh, they leave a doppelganger corpse?
Pretty much.
So that people don't know they even stole the body?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's some shady trickery right there.
Well, you get to read one of those stories right now as your third reading. It's, again, from Ramos's work, and it's from the Aswang complex.
There is an old custom among the Ifugao, Ifugao, to hang their dead under the house and build fires around it. People keep vigil and keep all the fires alive, for they are afraid of the Umangob, Umangob. They also plant a crimson herb, dongle, around the house, for it is believed that the Umangob is afraid of it. It looks like a big black police dog that comes at night to steal the big toes and the thumbs of the corpse. It does not touch any other part of the corpse except the big toes and the thumbs. It is not afraid of any other thing except the dongle and live fire, but it can pass through these, for it moves like lightning.
That again, Ramos's Aswang complex. So it's fast, it's horrible, it uses magic to disguise the corpse. And this is a grim vigil, you know.
Well, they put the corpse under the house. They hang it under the house. And then they surround the house with fire?
Yeah, and it's very, like I said, you've hinted at, it's dangerous. We're going to get into that a little bit, some of the things that can go horribly wrong.
Like it might turn into your house might turn into a pyre.
Yeah.
if you're not careful with that fire.
Yep. But even, this is kind of speaking of grim, if you saw the episode on the Aswang, I know you're not a grim guy, but for those out there that are grim folks, they have a great one, a great depiction of this beastie, really creepy. The grim, spoiler alert though, fun fact, Sergeant Wu becomes a wolf later in the series. But in this episode, it shows this lady climbing up the tree, going across the branch, climbing in through the window, and then the long tongue kind of going for the pregnant woman. And
Ooh.
Very, very creepy. Very well done.
Sounds like they actually did their proper research for that show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The way you talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of them they did. Some of them we'll get to I wasn't as happy with, but they kind of do their own thing and they kind of go off. Or maybe I'm wrong and maybe they just know more about a certain folklore than I do. I don't want to say for sure.
Well, I mean, with television, a lot of times they just make it up. Like they do no actual research into the stuff. So the fact that they're actually meshing up with your real lore of the stuff tells me they at least gave themselves a basic knowledge of their subject and weren't just making it up for themselves.
Yeah, I'm a grim fan for sure. But we should have done a content warning tonight, though, with everything before we get into what they're eating and how disgusting this all gets, because this is pretty rough stuff.
So Wolfman Pucks is going to be fun? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, good times. That's when we should do the content. Yeah, content of your stomach warning at that point.
Definitely a content warning on the Wolfman Pucks for this
we
one.
We should just always have not suitable for children or adults on the show.
I think if you've heard us, you know that
we're not.
You need to kind of expect anything at any given time.
I guess so. It's just a given. But that behavior is depicted on Grimm captures the common Aswang attack style, which actually has its own Filipino word, Panang Aswang. P-A-N-G-A-N-G, Aswang, which comes from the word to trick or exploit. So I'm never going to order the same thing at Daratai again.
Panang Aswang.
Exactly.
I want to learn that style.
But the Aswang seems to be a great bucket to dump anything unpleasant. So anyone mentally ill.
Aswang.
Any devious behaviors.
Aswang.
Any unexplained illnesses.
Aswang.
Rock and roll.
Aswang.
Podcast personalities.
Aswang.
Oversized umbrellas are still Aswang.
Mary Poppins.
That's right.
Yeah, Mary Poppins was flying on an Aswang yak.
She has a Aswang yak. Who the hell knew that?
Right? I can't believe you didn't think of that yourself, Boss.
No, you did good. I'm proud of you for that one. But let's start with Maximos's buckets. Let's just go through those 12 real quick. When I say real quick, we're going to try to go through them real quick. But here's the dragon class. The Philippine dragons appear to have four main types. Bird-like Bawao, B-A-U-A, of the Hiligaynon, and the Minakawa of the Bagaboo, the fish-like Bokanawa of the Hiligaynon, and the Surian Buea of the Tagalog et al. And the fourth one is the snake-like one of the Hiligaynon, the Sawa to the Tagalog. So basically you've got a snake-like one, you've got a fish-like one, you've got a bird-like one.
So earth, air, and water. They have a representative in each of the physical realms at that point.
Yeah, it's very elemental.
Very elemental.
Yep. And the cool point about this, the Tagalog have a dragon called the Buaya, B-U-W-A-Y, who they respect so much they refer to it as Nono, which means what, Jeremy, if you're respecting something?
Nono?
N-O-N-O.
It means don't touch it.
Means grandfather. Lola is grandma. No.
Oh, okay.
So they call it
Lolo,
no, just like in the Kiowa. Tell grandfather.
Grandfather, yeah.
Give it tobacco.
Right,
it's the same. We see those same themes all across the globe. Show it respect.
Yeah, they're all tied in with the spirits of the people, the ancestors and whatnot.
Correct.
It's all the monsters are tied in with the ancestors.
Which is why it was so difficult to talk about the lower mythologies when they're treating it like a higher mythology. And again, it's this overlap. But those same dragons have a built-in saddle, which take you to their cave in style, kind of the Cadillac of Kelpie. I ask again, do they take you to their lair to teach or devour, or is it a little bit of both? And, is it a creature teacher?
It's the Yeti Banjekri thing.
Yeah.
They're taking you to the master to see if you can pass the test.
Maybe. And then there's the demon class. We have the Capri from the Tagalog, or the Ilocos, or the Bicol. These are dark complexioned and huge, yet not in the giant category. So why are they not in the giant category? Even there, they're these, huge demon class things.
Why are black bears brown and brown bears black?
Right.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah, it doesn't always make sense, these classification charts.
They chirp like a bird, and they can scare you to death. Most of these creatures of lower mythology are tree dwellers, but these giants wander the woods in a loincloth, hang out on large branches, puffing away on giant cigars with their giant muscles. That's when they are not on the prowl for local women.
Sounds like me on my off days.
Is it? Is it twoo what they say about pickle demons? It's twoo.
It's twoo.
And the Tikbalang are shapeshifters usually depicted in a humanoid form with a horse's head. They can also lead travelers astray, cause blindness, bewilder, or drive one insane. It's also known for, like other Aswang, making you sick or giving you the illness or fever. Most likely they just kill you, but we find that same ability, Jeremy, to confuse or craze with other beasties, kind of the Kushtika, the Iraq. Remember all those other things we talked about? Making you crazy.
Yeah. And they're making you sick, too.
And it's one or the other.
Yeah.
They also make a tick-tick sound when they approach, hence the name. But the tick-tick sound is associated with a lot of other Aswang, not just the Tikbalang, so it gets confusing. But a cool fact, some believe that the further away the tick-tick sound is, the closer the actual beastie is. We've seen this theme with several other critters as well. If you remember, again, that was the Iraq and some of these other ones.
So the closer they are, the farther away they sound.
If you hear a tick-tick way in the distance, it may be very close. And we found the same thing with the Iraq, and I think there was a couple
trickster
of them.
ventriloquism kind of
Semeste, I think, is similar to that one.
The tick-tick thing, that makes me think of the Predator with the weird clicking sound it would make.
And if it's a tick-tock sound, that's Chinese spyware on your iPhone.
So
ignore that.
If it's tic-tac, then it's an alien.
It's an alien probe.
Yeah.
I mentioned what a good job the show Grimm did with the Aswang, but not so good with the Tikbalang. So here's that complaint I have. Okay. There's a horse-headed humanoid in another episode that they call a Knuckle from Celtic folklore. It's really more of a Tikbalang. It's a dude with a horse's head. So why they call it a Knuckle I'll knuckle a no.
Have you looked up that name? Because there may be something very similar.
The Knuckle is from Celtic folklore, but it's more of a top half, almost a centauri, fleshless, coarse.
The characteristics of this monster are more what you're talking about.
More of a Tikbalang.
I gotcha.
Than a Knuckle. Is all I'm saying. They don't always get it right. They don't. I'm not a consultant for the show, and the show's been canceled.
Well, maybe you should be.
Yeah. Well, it's already done. We'd have to time travel.
Man, we really got to build that time machine.
I know.
It keeps coming up.
The Wayback Machine. But the story specific...
If we were only that smart, boss.
But the story specific to these critters is that they carry a magical stone, the mutya, and if you jump up and ride them and break them, you get to keep the magical stone. If you fall off, results may vary. But get this, no horses indigenous to this island. So the two main theories are Spanish brought horses, which became the model, or the Hindu influence, again, of Vishnu, that horse-headed avatar of Vishnu. So again, we got multiple, an animal that isn't there.
Yeah, they're worshiping an animal that doesn't even exist to them.
What happened with the were-crocodiles? The most dangerous one was a wild ass or a mule that isn't indigenous.
There's no such thing
there. Exactly.
Yeah, where does that come from?
I know. Well, they have those two theories. I do not know. The Pujo, which is part of our title tonight, from the Ikloe or the Pampampango. Instead of a horse, these prefer to shapeshift into a dark giant, a cat with fiery eyes, or a large dog. They also shoot flames from their mouth. These are also giants of the wood, but my favorite rendition of this Pujo is a headless giant roaming the woods with a neck that oozes and bubbles blood. That was from Ramos's work.
Oh.
Most of these are, by the way.
Headless horseman type stuff?
Yeah. Then there's the batty bat from the Loco tradition. This is a weird one, often described as a large female, but the one account I found of this in Ramos's work describes something more akin to an astral attack like the hag or Mara, except this is an oversized edition wherein the batty bat, this large woman, sits on your chest and suffocates you. So there's a nightmarish component to this demon lore as well.
Yeah, the literal textbook nightmare, sitting on your chest.
Usually it's a little, again, a hairy, demon-y kind of, those are some of the depictions.
This is an oversized nightmare.
But the commonality was that of something suffocating you. We're going to do those episodes if we ever make it to season 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I plan to do. That's near and dear to my heart, that one, so we will get to that at some point. I'm just doing a couple from each category, though, because we got to move along. Dwarf class, we have similar to our understanding and description of their European counterparts, small, misshapen creatures of the earth living underground. They like gold, and the ladies, it does sound similar. Here is a Ramos quote. I've found these in Ramos's work, and I kind of put them together. They've been called spirit of the field, spirit of the hills, people of the ground. I also found lice of the ground, which isn't really respectful.
That's not a flattering way to say it.
I wouldn't do, when you're walking through there, I would not use that lingo particularly. There's also the elf class. Elves are fair-skinned, slender, even more Europeanized creatures perhaps. There are also, no surprise, tree spirits, as many of these beasties are. The dwarves are underground. Most everything else is up in the trees. Is kind of a good way to look at it.
Right.
Many of these elf beings are invisible unless they want to be seen. Sometimes only a specific family member. I remember one story where only like the daughter could see these things, which is again
the one
common
that
trope.
is actually the shaman,
the diviner.
can see them.
Right. Then we have the vampire class. For the most part, the vampire class is really morphed into the European movie industry version, the Twilightification of the genre.
Oh, no.
So the rest seems to overlap with these other categories, but Ramos speaks of the old... Oh, there's one. He does this Isnik tale of the Danang spirits, which is a really cool vampire origin mythos from this area. An old woman is in the field and cuts herself on the finger while she's tilling the soil. A Danang starts sucking the wound just to try to help. But then he kind of yells over to his buddies. He's like, hey, stop planting. I got a better idea. And then that's when they became vampires.
Oh, no.
That moment. That's creepy. I mean, it was just his butt. You know,
he just got one little taste of blood, and it was on.
It was on.
It was on.
Exactly. Agriculture to agriculture in one step.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. But
like it didn't. That's all it took was, here, let me help, and suck 2 little drops of blood and be like, I'm just going to eat you.
Yep.
That's a big leap.
But I'm going to cut the rest of the vampire because it's a lot of indicative of some other.
And if they're glittery like that, I don't want to hear it. I like real vampires.
And then there's the ghoul class. They are another group that likes to devour humans. These are the ones, they're not walking, not flying Aswang. Their distinctive feature might be long curved nails, sometimes big-eared or goat-like the segpin, or they have claws and teeth. They also smell horrible. The ghoul can literally smell death a mile away. And not just the smell, they listen, they can hear the sounds of death, is what it said in Ramos's work.
That's very demony, much more demony than the other ones.
Yeah, the main reason people keep, but again, there's a demon class, and these are the ghoul class. It is so overlapping.
Ghouls and demons are in adjacent buckets,
but they're the reason you have to do these vigil for your dead, because they're the ones coming for the funeral and to the attendees of the funeral, and they're the ones who have to light fires to keep them away, kind of thing, which we'll talk more about in Best Defense. And there's the Buso. Ghoulish aspect. These are described as more shadow-like beings, so they have a shadow-like version of these things. The Segpin, and that's from various Vician groups, are goat-like creatures or satyrs, but they are hornless, which is odd for horny creatures. They don't have a horn. But brings us to the Balbal. And this is from the Tagabanua group. I do have some bad news on the ghoul front regarding the Balbal. This is hard for me to say, Jeremy, but the Balbal has a ghoul that flies through the air resembling a flying squirrel. So the origins of Rocky and Bullwinkle fame, of the Bullwinkle fame may well be a Filipino tree ghoul.
So the moose isn't really a moose?
No. Yeah, the moose. Yeah.
And Mary Poppins' umbrella is an Aswang. we really just like ruining childhoods on this podcast, I think.
Everywhere.
Like at every turn.
But it is our own childhoods too, so it isn't like we're just ruining yours. We're ruining ours too.
It's like each episode pulls out another little piece of my soul.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
The road from hate to deeper hate. Yeah. Then there's the giant class, ghouls, demons, and ogres. Again, they kind of overlap. All very cannibalistic, craving human flesh. But I think what singles out the giants is that they are a more harmless version. Less magically inclined, less intelligent, just big, but don't have any of this maliciousness. Sometimes they have multiple heads. That's about as cool as the giant class gets. So we'll move on from that. There's the merfolk class, which is interesting. According to Dr. Ramos, the word sirena comes from the colonizers and the word sirens. They're basically cannibalistic, half-human, half-fish hybrids that will lure people to their demise.
That is a siren, yes.
It is very similar to the global mythos that we would expect. One called the Ukkoy, Ugkoy, behave more like crocodiles, waiting for folks to get too close to the edge, and then bam. And there's a picture depiction of one that looks very slee-stacky. So there are some that look like Creature from the Black Lagoon, basically. So some of those look like that. But there's, again, just such a wide variety of half-fish. Some just look more like half-fish and more traditional mermaid. Others look more like Creature from the Black Lagoon. They're kind of all over the map.
Okay.
But not all over the map, only water parts of the map, basically.
Only in the water.
Yeah. There is a way to woo these things, though, an offering, often a little chicken and a coconut shell at the edge of the water, similar to the Menehuna of Hawaii. If you're inviting them to a feast and befriending, don't be afraid when you see grandfather. Be respectful, make an offering, bring them tobacco, that kind of thing. I don't know if they do tobacco thing there, but you get the idea. Yeah. One fun fact, and I alluded to this earlier, I learned from Ramos's books, many Filipinos can't swim because they're so afraid of what might be lurking in the water. This caused numerous unnecessary drownings.
I'm sorry, but if you live on an island, you should know how to swim.
I know.
That's just a thing.
Ramos's work admirably defends mythology and spells out why folklore is so important to the Filipino culture, or Bastian's Volcadanken we talk about. More on that, coming soon. But
There's
yes, it's hard. It's hard when people are dying because of their beliefs and their fears.
There's a lot of fishermen that don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That's a weird moment.
Like they spend their life on a boat and they're afraid of going in the water.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to me.
Well, I'm reading anthropologist Penelope Bernard right now. It always gets clearer what might be happening post-Christianization. This was just a thought, but before you have this merfolk or giant snake living in a pool, you just have to show respect, bring it to offerings. Sometimes these things kidnap you, and they teach you stuff to let you go again. It's a catch and release kind of thing.
Yeah.
After Christianization, it's just this giant snake or creature in the Black Lagoon. It's just this monster living in the swimming hole, and you don't go anywhere near it.
Right.
And in the old days, you just had to show respect and keep your distance, and it will contact you if it needs you. Leave it alone. And then it becomes this evil thing in the water hole.
It went from being a relationship to being something alien.
Right. This is part of our world, and it just became other relegated monster outside the boundary. And that's part of what colonization did. Just part of the good stuff.
Man. But
then there's the witch class. Witches are female. Male versions called wizards, but witches in the Philippines can operate like Aswang. They fly, they shapeshift, they harm people in a variety of ways. And or they may be those recruiters we talked about, creating other Aswang, that group. Similar breakdown, shamans, diviners, priests, and healers we find in this area. They're the good ones. And then the witches and the Aswang and the Sithers, as we call them, are the bad ones. So as in other areas, shamans and medicine peeps are revered and witches are feared. If they suspect a witch is in their midst, the villagers often take matters into their own hands. It can get ugly. Witches can be identified as being tired, haggard, and sickly during the day, but more energetic and powerful and beautiful at night.
I'm a witch.
There you go.
Very nocturnal.
Exactly. Their eyes often look red, but the real tell is when you gaze into the witch's eye, the image is inverted. So they are going to be kind of flipped. So they'll never look at you in the eye for this reason. They're also not said to have any philtrum under the nose, that split. They fear the light, except, of course, moonlight or maybe Bud Light. I don't know.
So What does that mean? What the fulcrum under the nose? That's weird.
Yeah, it's not something I've come across elsewhere as of yet.
Yeah.
It's like an unformed, unfinished, like it's a part of the face that just isn't there.
It's a very subtle version of the dysmorphia, I guess, that we see in all these
something
things.
off.
Yeah.
It's again something off. But the Mancanculum has this voodoo connection. It's the witch that's the most like the voodoo. Gives you the sickness, the migraine, using dolls with pins to inflict pain.
That's voodoo.
That's not even voodoo adjacent. That's
straight voodoo.
That's straight up voodoo. There's werewolves or were-dog class, as we talked about, where they train you to go on the newspaper. Not too dissimilar between werewolf lore elsewhere. It seems somewhat easier to become one in this region, not just a bite or a scratch, but breath, food, or if you drink, again, just licking on a pizza like we talked about. You gnaw on something they gnaw on, you're going to become a were creature.
Enjoy the next full moon, Maz.
But the biggest difference from folklore elsewhere is how there are no werewolves on these islands, so the were-dogs, again, are the shapeshifter. They fill that shapeshifter niche.
There you go.
The Malacat is the Waro group's version of the werewolf and is a fierce were-dog with all the werewolf accoutrements, including the fiery red eyes we're so accustomed to. Ramos talks of an unnamed werewolf of Apayao, A-P-A-Y-A-O ethnic group, that is a big black dog that can turn into an extraordinarily smelly human form. Lesson, take a shower or risk being shot with a silver bullet by your locals.
Extraordinarily smelly.
Some of these are extraordinarily smelly. That's the odor group is pretty strong here.
That's funny.
So take a shower if you're a monster or be condemned by the villagers eventually.
It can look human, but it still smells like the beast that it really is.
Exactly. Interesting point. The walking Aswang are generally male, but the Malacat, an exception, can be either gender. This brings us to our fourth reading from Ramos's discussion on the Batangas. And here's Jeremy reading one more quote from Dr. Ramos's Lower Mythology.
In attacking a person, she assumes a horrible and frightful sight. Her long hair spreads all over her face. Her eyes turn fiery and her saliva flows from out of her mouth like long strings. Her nails grow long and sharp. As the fight begins, her hair crawls into the person's nose, ears, mouth, and eyes, depriving him of his breath, voice, and sight. She grips the victim firmly on the arms and legs. With her sharp claws, she digs into the victim's skin until it bleeds. If she has a weapon with her, she avoids the struggle, and the victim might be killed. Thereafter, she feasts on the victim's flesh.
There you have it. We finally get to our visceral sucker class, which is a pretty exciting one. We're just touching on this class today because most of these fiends, especially the Manangal, have been relocated to part 2 of this little feature in a different Aswang project, basically. But the Manacalculum is another one that we just want to put a pin in that, I guess. No, wait, don't put a pin in that. But suffice to say, they can self-segment, and their lower half kind of complete with trailing entrails. It can separate itself, and the top half with bat wings kind of flaps off into the night to do the same kind of thing with the tubular tongue and attacking the pregnant ladies and all that good stuff.
It just leaves its guts all hanging out while it flies around as a torso?
Yes. We've got different variations of that. We're going to get into more details on that.
That just made the image in my mind
hold
a
that
lot
thought.
earlier.
Hold that thought in your hands. Just hold that thought in your hands while it's dripping through your fingertips.
I'm not going to touch that
Yep. Well, that's next. Most of that's going to be next week. Okay. Ogre class, these are like onions, as Shrek talks about. Giant man-eating shapeshifters. There's the Kumao, K-U-M-A-O, is many-limbed ogre, known to chase down people and feast on them. There's the Buso, as we talked about, an ogre you come across a lot in folklore. Only one eye or one forehead horn or tusks. The daughter of the Buso is, I guess, Leela from Futurama, maybe. But giant, ugly, and more traditionally ogre-like. Red or yellow eyes. Those are our two favorite shapeshifter eye colors.
Yeah.
The Buso is often invisible or when seen somewhat shadow-like. Their number is supposed to be legion. Per Ramos, in all, there were 3,000 Buso, 2,000 walking, and 1,000 flying. So there's a lot. And these are the ones who go in packs.
They're invisible or shadow-like.
They can be.
So they're ephemeral in a way.
Many of these things, again. We're going to get to that. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Ramos mentions a kind of Bloody Mary variation thingy with the Buso lore. There's this ritual of putting wood chips on a coffin of a certain wood in a certain way, and then going to where the wood was cut down on the night of the funeral. If you do this ritual properly, you can see the very Buso who killed your loved one. It will appear to you.
Whoa.
But according to Ramos, no one yet has been brave enough to try. So this is a kind of a Bloody Mary.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Version.
I mean, is it just going to kill you once it shows up?
No one knows.
Yeah.
It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. You just don't do it.
It's kind of asking for it in a way.
Then there's the Garuda of the Maneno group. Actually comes to the Philippines by way of India. Has monstrous wings. When he flies, his wings sound like 10 thunderstorms, according to Ramos. So these things are ogre class. So they are giant flying man-eating humanoids. So there's your flying humanoids, if you missed out on them.
Yeah.
Then there's the Alan from the Aran group. Is interesting version, which is bat-like, kind of hangs upside down, has backward digits, backwards feet. Every digit is backwards in the wrong way, which is not how you would envision our Western version of an ogre at all. Sounds more like a Sasabonsum or something.
Yeah.
But a good description of the female Alan and her son San, just saying, comes from Mabel Cook's folklore on the Tingwin group, The Story of San. It's kind of like a Grendel's mom kind of thing. And this is a quote from Mabel Cook. In the depths of a dark forest where people seldom went lived a wizened old Alan. The skin on her wrinkled face was as tough as a caribou hide, and her long arms with fingers pointing back from the wrists were horrible to look at. ... This story is considered by the Tingwin to be a rather recent origin. They believe the San lived not so very long ago, yet the stories woven around him are very similar to the ancient ones. So at least this particular Alan monster and his mother lived not so very long ago. It's very Grendel and Grendel's mom kind of story. And that was from MC Cole, Filipino Folktales. But what do you call a Manangal who is dating an Alan? An Allen wench. You can put that with my King Philip's head screwdriver joke. We have a whole toolbox of monster stuff coming up here. Counts and evidence file.
Those tools ain't fixing nothing, Muzz.
I know. For commonality of stories, I want to start with my old shapeshifter sheet. Again, the Filipino monster mash is daunting. They're all kind of the same. I tried to tackle this just in a different way. I kind of got the feeling, instead of going, there are hundreds of different variations of these 12 buckets that Ramos has. Each of them has 10 or 20 or 25 different types, and he doesn't cover all of them because I found different types in other places.
Wow.
So there's hundreds of these things, maybe thousands. You can't go on my spreadsheet one by one, obviously. I gave up on that by episode 3.
Oh, yeah, it's far beyond the ability of a spreadsheet.
But what I did for this one is I decided, what if we're looking at one phenomenon and just see which ones fit each category? Were we going to able to hit each category, basically, by considering it one phenomenon?
Okay.
That was just the thought experiment. So this is what happened. Besides hallucinogens, I pretty much found all of them, and this is what we're going to kind of go through quick. So column by column superpowers. If you remember, I made this spreadsheet, and we're just going to go down basically the columns. And for those who didn't see that, this was on our skin
Walker
and shape
shifter
episodes, pretty much. But superpowers is the first column. Incredible speed. The Segbin, the goats have incredible speed. Power of flight is also possible for Aswang. Metamorphosis. Tikbalang and Pugot demon class have the power to cause insanity, as we talked about. Some ghouls can smell death a mile away, as we talked about. They can create illusions. They can lick their wounds to heal. They can get ginormous or very small, like other shapeshifters. Witches are able to kill with a look, can make people ill via a variety of dark arts, including the purple nurple, the wedgie, and the dreaded wet willy.
Yeah.
The shamanistic column, obviously, all this smells like shamanism. And Aswang, I guess I'll rest my case there.
Yep.
Therianthropic column, everything's a therianthrope. Tikbalang, half man, half horse. Segbin, half goat, half man. Manangals, half bat, half woman. Baroka is half bird-like woman. Same. They're all kind of the same thing. Yeah. And there is some chimeric ones. The Tianak for the dwarf class had long ears, grasshopper legs, and goat hooves. It's pretty chimeric.
Oh, yeah.
More on the Tianak when we get to mimicry. Multi-species shift. For this we find, again, any number of stories where in the same shaped shifter shifts from a man to a pig to a dog. In the same story, well, he's being chased by pitchforks and torches. So we see multi-species shifts. Red eyes. Great number of these creatures have red eyes. The Pugot, its demon class, reported to have red eyes. The were-dogs are often associated with fiery red eyes. The witches, the Buso. There's even one story where it says that the eyes get redder just before they're going to attack. So there's a Philippine, and it was in Ramos's work as well. So the red eyes get redder than they attack, which is pretty cool. Mimicry, the Tianak, we just talked about, dwarf class, can be chimeric again, but also leads travelers astray through mimicry. I think the Capri does that too. It leads travelers astray, but more usually harmlessly. But this one specifically, what does it sound like, do you think? What's your guess?
A crying baby.
Crying baby is just one of them. Distraught woman, or crying baby.
Yeah, it's always either a woman in distress or a crying baby.
Yeah.
In fact, it always is.
And in fact, for this one, it's a dwarf that pretends it's a baby, and when you go to pick it up, it actually turns back into a dwarf and starts shouting at you. That's the better version. There's a more malicious version that it turns into the creature that it is, and it starts to devour you. Ooh, so that's the nastier side. That's
definitely not as funny.
Time to feed the baby. And there's also this Mantianak, which is another gorgeous gal. Until you see her from the back, where she's just a skeleton. She utters not only crying baby sounds, but cat sounds.
Meow.
And watch your Rocky Mountain bet spheres with this one, because it gets a little nasty. Reverse column, we already talked about the Caban elf class reverse feet. As for the witch class, the reflection of the eyes are inverted or upside down. The Allen, everything is reversed. All the digits on this thing are reversed. So we see that theme.
It's hard to even picture the backward hands like that.
And it being able to move around successfully. Yeah. Something off column, we did a gazillion of these already. We just keep coming across something off.
Yeah.
Nature spirit column, again, the Anito, it's the same kind of thing we've been talking about. Kryptonite, the best defense actually section is so long on this one. There's so much from your kitchen that will thwart an Aswang. So I think the best defense should just be moved to Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah, there you go. An herb garden.
Yeah.
Would be the best defense.
Exactly. Yeah, there are a lot of herbs are part of this.
Grow the right plants and know how to use them. Become an herbalist.
There you go. And that's one of the medicine men. That's one of their little talents.
Yeah.
Guardian column, again, similar nature spirits. There's these guardian spirits. We have the Gadang, believes that the Karanget dwarf class are true owners of the land. We also have the Anito problem, landscape spirit aspect. Same idea. Dwarves, elves, it goes on. Heinous act column, all of this is heinous.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them is cannibalistic. A lot of them do something terrible to become the creature again.
This has been a very heavy cannibalism episode.
Yes, as heavy as you're going to get. Most of these creatures, there's basically two types. You got the ones that are going to attack the woman or someone in the house with the tongue, and they're kind of attacking from the outside the person to sicken.
Right.
And then there's the deceased person that then you have to do the vigil to keep the ghouls away. Those tend to be the two main things that are happening. But whistling column, there's actually a bunch of whistlers here too. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But the dwarf class, the Karanget, the Gadang group makes a whistling sound when they respond to the shaman's call. There's also the Agoy elf class of the Ware. They actually whistle to communicate, as well as the Palascan elf class. They whistle at night. There's a bone theme, that skeleton lady from the back. There's a lot of bone theme stuff. The voodoo column, the Meneculum, we said it wasn't even voodoo adjacent. They use pins and dolls in voodoo fashion. Missing part, we have a number of things that have missing parts. What's some of them? We have dwarf with a missing leg. We have a giant with a missing head, the Pujo. The Manangal has half its body missing. Those aren't pillows. So, but then we have the soul stealer aspect. There is one in a Pawan of the Tao we talked about from Taiwan will steal your soul. It is implied that the same fate awaits many of the ghouls if they get your deceased loved one. It's not spelled out, but it's a bad idea if a ghoul gets your dearly departed. It's probably not a good thing for them.
Oh, sure.
Their astral afterlifey stuff.
Part of cannibalism is the devouring of the physical body equates to the devouring of the soul, though, for a lot of cannibalistic peoples, right?
Yeah. You're taking on their power.
So, I mean, one of them is very directly, I just suck out your soul in a very direct way, but it might not be all that different from the ones that eat you.
Yeah.
Because they're eating you in order to devour your essence.
Right. No argument there.
So
no argument.
Instead of just ripping out your soul, they just eat the entire thing.
Yeah. And the targets, same idea. We have especially scared kids. You have kids, they like to target pregnant women. The sick is another common one. And then horny. We've got obviously a lot of them, the Capri and a variety of things that are interested in some of the dwarf class. You know, the Capri are these dark men roaming the woods, nothing but a loincloth, and they're designed to keep people inside their house, but that probably makes young women want to go walk in the woods. I think it's probably having the reverse effect.
You think?
Yeah, is it woo?
Those fat-bellied gnomes, man, no one can resist.
They make the rock and world go round. But the trickster category was lacking. There was hardly any mention of tricksters, so I thought this was odd in Ramos's work. After reading both his books, didn't find much on the trickster. The Tyanak class has a little of that going on. They lead travelers astray. So will the Kepre, that giant. But
these do generally seem to be much more straightforward than the trickster. Like they just come and get you.
Well, I just thought it was wrong, and so I had to find it. They have the Lete elves. There's one other ones I found where they will actually change people's beds while they're sleeping. They play little pranks on you. But I started reading some of the basic mythology of the Philippines because I wasn't happy with this. If there isn't a heavy trickster component, I just feel like it's missing. So
you went and found it.
I went and found it. There's basically, if you look, the Bickle group has an origin mythos, which comes from this story, which I found. Original deities Gurung, the good brother living in Mount Mayon, and his brother Aswang, the less than stellar doppelganger evil twin.
Aswang.
Asuang is the bad brother's name.
So it's almost the same.
Gurung held sway over the people of Earth and would set off a volcanic eruption as a warning if people were starting to do bad deeds or stray from the mission, very much like Pele in Hawaii. These disturbances displaced several cryptids, including the Gloucester sea serpent and the giant spider from Gilligan's Island. No, that's a different volcano episode.
Nice episode 2 callback.
Aswang wanted his brother's power of fire and asked for it, but Gugurung knew he would give it to the people, so he refused. Also, he explained how no one can handle his fire because the power was by its very nature uncontrollable. Aswang made himself invisible, distracted the volcano guards with gold, snuck in and stole some of the fire in a coconut shell.
How very Promethean.
Yes. He then strolls through the world, but every place he goes bursts into flames. In fact, he burned most of the world before his brother caught up with him. Gugurung ordered lightning to attack Aswang, and he recovered the fire and returned it to Joe in the volcano or something like that. Meanwhile, the people never forgave Aswang, even though he was just trying to help, but ended up, burning the whole place down. But we have Aswang as again, as you said, a Promethean, darker brother, as the trickster, and he is the proto-shaman who must at some point teach all the sorcerers their dark magic. The Aswang are taught at some point in prehistory by this trickster being named Aswang. Again, Aswang, the trickster god, Aswang, the witch, the Aswang, the monster, the Godzilla people.
So the teacher, the student, and the monster basically all... The names are almost exactly the same. They're all just a letter off from each other.
Yeah. And it's just like Tetzalcoatl and Quetzalcoatl. You got the darker, smoky mirror brother. Always, as soon as there's a hero, his brother is the trickster, darker messenger.
Yeah, that whole twins thing is so common in mythology as well.
Yeah.
The Remus and Romulus and the Cain and Abel and.
It starts the monster theory. Monster theory starts with the twin origin mythos.
Right.
We'll get one of these days. We'll do something on that, I'm sure.
The dichotomy of man.
Exactly.
And all that.
The darker self. But we did doppelganger already, so we definitely hit on that to some degree.
Yeah.
And I tried to get away from this theme when I did doppelganger. I was like, I'm going to do something totally different. No, you're not.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Good times. Here's some highlight stories from this region, though. Sabrina Candelaria is one name associated with the Aswang. Greg Bankoff 99 covers this interesting account of Sabrina Candelaria, a Filipino native who is plagued by a familiar who torments her. This entity acts more like an imp, a trickster, or a demon, gives her some insights which intrigues the locals, so briefly she becomes a bit of a celebrity, but eventually this familiar proves too hard to handle and starts shaking trees and harassing the girl outright. She ends up in the pokey because of all this disruption. As the thing continues to cause mischief, And even, it even messes with her while she's in jail, according to the jail guards.
Whoa! According to the jail
this
guards.
is the theme. Yeah. So we are going back a ways, but yes, apparently the jailers confirmed that this poor lady's still being tormented by this thing while she's in jail. Oddly, the familiar dressed and spoke like a Spaniard. So here's Bankoff on the matter. It would seem that the devil's familiars and Spaniards have become one, at least in the cosmology of Sabrina Candelaria and her village. And that's from ResearchGate, and I'll have that in the show notes.
They all became one.
Yeah, in her case, the imp dressed like a Spaniard, but it became this poltergeist phenomenon that became a sensation in the town, and she goes to jail because of the disruptions and they can't control it. I don't know for her safety or what, they throw her in there and this thing is still messing with her.
I might have to do a full-on deep dive on that at some point.
It is an interesting one. Definitely there's more on that for sure. The second name associated with this is an urban legend for the Aswang, and it's one that I'm going to have you read, and it's about a woman named Maria. And this is going to be from philstar.com, will be in the show notes.
The Philippine Star, November 9th, 2015, 12 a.m. Manila, Philippines. Urban legends have a way of affecting us, and for a long time now, that of Maria Labo has elicited terror and repulsion, especially in the Visayas, where her story is said to have taken place. She is the Aswang from Iloilo. Others claim Capiz or Sorsogon, who butchered her own children and fed them to her husband after she herself feasted on them. Yikes. To this day, many believe that she is still out there looking for victims to satiate her cravings. ... Labo, which means to hack in Ilonggo, is attached to Maria's name because of what was done to her face.
That's one of the main Aswang accounts. That's kind of the urban legend, the Bloody Mary again of some,
cannibalizing her own children and then feeding the rest to her husband.
Yeah.
And doesn't sound like he knew what he was eating at the time.
Yeah.
That's about as horrible as it gets.
Yeah. These are horrible stories.
That's
why we share.
Level cannibalism.
That's why we share here.
She is exceptionally anthropophagic.
2015, there is a movie, if you're interested, but by Roy Vinzen. It's a thriller film, if you want to check that out. I have not watched it, but it sounds disturbing as hell. It sounds like an Alex Bone film.
Yeah.
Then there's another name. Tiente Gamo is another name associated with the Aswang. He was a real person, but this tale has been kind of debunked, as it believed it was, it was basically an Aswang antics were created to scare off Japanese invaders, so there was a reason behind it. So the story kind of scully muggles itself pretty early on, but basically it was another tale of an Aswang, but that he was an Aswang, but they were really just doing it to keep people from coming near them. It was part of a war tactic.
Keep away the oppressors.
Yep. Next week, we cover a highlight story of a recent Manananggal sighting in the Philippines, so stay tuned for that. There's some really spooky stuff coming up in episode 2, and we do the Manananggal, which is my favorite version of this.
As bad as this one is with all the cannibalism, it sounds like that one might get really nasty.
Next episode is going to be awesome. I'm just going to say that. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stick around for that. Best defense. As we suggested, there's so many. I'm going to go through them quick, and that's going to kind of wrap up a lot of the theory, and a lot of the strangeness is going to be shifted in other segments to the Manananggal episode. But we are going to go through best defense right now.
Oh, I thought we already did that.
No, I just said one best defense. There's 1,000. I said go to Bed Bath & Beyond. We're going to go a little bit more specific.
All of the actual defenses.
Yeah. I'm going to go through as many as I can, as quick as I can, because it's actually... I thought about just putting this as a side trail, or it's daunting how much can kill these things.
Well, that's good to know. Just if knowing is half the battle. So if you know what it takes, then you're already halfway there.
Yep. And back to the bolo, that sharpened bamboo stick.
Mm-hmm.
If you stab the thing in the back or anywhere, you can probably kill this thing. The black chick will excess. If you can get it out of its gullet, that's another way. Hang it upside down. That can also work. Stabbing with just a knife to the heart or back could work. Shaving from cattle horns. Throw it over coals, garlic and salt. Hang the sharp bolos under the house. Or leave all the stuff they hate under the house or on the roof. Just anything that you can do to keep them out. Aim for the tail during the tap because the Aswang will resume human form and can be killed. If you do kill it, dismember it and separate it, preferably putting the parts over a stream or river. We've all been there. We've all had to do that.
Stream or river, okay.
That's an old witch. That probably does come from European, honestly.
Okay.
But talipane, if you burn feathers, rubber, leather, or anything that creates a foul smell, that'll drive it away.
Hair.
Yeah. Gabi seeds, again, talipane. Fires under the house to drive away the ghouls after a funeral.
I wouldn't light a fire under my house.
Yeah, there's
there's
a lot of things they do out of fear that really endanger them, and we're gonna cover that. Actually, that's going to be a side trail.
Like you're going to burn your house down keep a spirit out of it. It seems self-defeating.
Dr. Ramos does a lot of work defending the folklore and how important it is to the culture and the Volkadanken, but he also actually goes really into detail of what this has cost these communities.
Yeah.
So he actually has a warning of where to draw the line, and we're going to kind of go over that in a side trail.
I don't begrudge anyone their beliefs. I'm wholly behind their culture, but at a certain point, you got to use logic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah. Like, don't light a fire under your house.
But if you think your
next
soul
to your house,
of your family
house,
member is at risk, you are going to do stuff to protect that soul of your family member, and I think that's where they're at. And it is a dark and scary place, and there's scary things doing scary things.
Put the sharpened bamboo sticks under the house and surround it with the fire.
Yes.
Don't put the fire directly.
I'm not
under
arguing
the house.
with you there.
Not arguing. Like you said, he did find places where the lines should be drawn.
Yes,
that's all I'm saying. Too.
Yeah. So we will get to that, and again, it's a tightrope act to kind of get through that. Some like the Pugot, just strike a match. That will work. Light.
Just strike a match?
Yes, because they hate fire.
Ah.
Light or the sun in general drive away Aswang. So maybe just carry around a small hydrogen burning star in your pocket. That could help.
Nice.
Tik Balang, you can ride like a horse and break to receive that magical item, or it breaks you. Merfolk, steel weapons seem to do the trick with anything from the sea.
Steel, okay.
To protect the pregnant, put certain fruit, the suho, pomola, on the roof of an expecting mother. For the wak-wak or the allen, same thing. Similar, we talked about python or crocodile scarecrows on the roof of this tin structure.
Crocodile scarecrow, I love it.
To defend against attack during labor, the husband has a ritual involving a sword and removing his clothing. This will spook the in-laws as well. A lighted lamp or a stingray's tail supported under the room of the expectant mother. As usual, one of the best ways to stop an Aswang is your local shaman. For the Belayans or Bikkel, it's the hid ritual to cure and reverse any Aswang illness, but each group of shaman has these rituals that will help. Stop a dragon, just offer them food. Dragon Caterer series will be next.
Dragons are always hungry.
Exactly. Knowing their name works, that Rumpelstiltskin effect we always talk about. Most of these aren't category specific sometimes, but it's really one big Aswang defense list. Like sometimes they say this will work on these and these and these. It seems like any of these would work on almost any Aswang.
It sounds like generally anything stabby will work on these guys. Sharpened bamboo and steel blades, and there's a lot of just stabby things in there. I would carry a blade of some kind if I lived in the Philippines, I think.
There you go. Prepared coconut oil, ginger, salt, garlic again, strong scents, any strong scent. You said sharp things, brass or copper. Some fashion knives out of these. Feathers or hair, a pestle placed in the doorway. Crabs under the witch's house work well. I think other seafood, can work. Any seafood. It seems like they don't like marine things.
Oh, because they're on an island. Seafood stuff, that stuff coming out of the ocean is going to work into your folklore if you're on an island.
Not going to work for merfolk, but it'll work for a lot of the other Aswang. Ghouls don't like sharp objects again, loud noise, fire again, certain leaves, plants, the sob specifically for ghouls they don't like. Oracian, there's this garbled Latin prayer you can tell. Basically, it's jibber-jabber just because they didn't really know Latin, so it's again a Christianized version. Tie with the cord of a priest is another Christianized version. There's a way to say the Apostles' Creed to bind certain viscera suckers to stone. There's been a lot of that Christianization thing going on. For time's sake, though, I think we probably done enough of those. But Dream Team against the Aswang Company. I like the Aswang. I like the idea of kind of tongue v tongue. So I'm going to bring Gene Simmons. I feel like from Kiss. I feel like he has these big kick-ass shoes to really put a stomping on some of those shapeshifters.
Well, bring the whole band and
he
make
breathes fire.
Yeah, and they're knights in Satan's service, so they can fight the demons.
Yeah, but I just thought the tongue against tongue is us thinking more specifically Gene Simmons.
Sure,
he
needs his backup band though.
Yeah, if he wants to bring his friends, I'm not gonna say no. I would also like to add one.
You need the Star Cat, dude.
You mean Ace Frehley?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. It wouldn't hurt to have more. More the merrier if you're fighting Aswang.
I can't play Beth without Ace,
It's true. When I hear you calling.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I'm going to add one to this list. Even though this list is incredibly long, I feel like it's missing something very important.
Uh-oh.
Do you have any thoughts? Because you're not going to get it, but I have a thought on it.
The only thought in my head right now is, uh-oh.
Yeah. As well you should be. I'm going to add spackle. Because think about it. They live in these shacks. All you have to do is get
spackle the cracks.
Spackle the cracks. And none of these things are going to be able to get you as long as you spackle the cracks. So on that note, I have an announcement. I'm moving to the Philippines to become a door-to-door spackle salesman.
Ooh.
Problem solved. Yep.
You're going to be a Filipino crack filler.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
When I put it that way, it sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible, man. But I did write this part. This is a prepared joke alert.
These never go well.
These never go well. You spackle everything in your shack, and these things can't get to you. The thread-like tongue can't get through, and all these things attack from the outside. Or they're dumping stuff to make you sick, like you said. So
they slip indoors through multitudes of cracks.
Yes.
Which you will fill with your spackle.
On that note, I have an announcement to make. I am moving to the Philippines to become a door-to-door spackle salesman. Problem solved. Think about it. Usually these are old people, tired old shapeshifters, out way past their bedtime, looking for a midnight snack, but rarely looking for a fight. What do? They usually stay outside the dwelling and slip their tongue through the cracks in the floorboards or walls to feast and further sicken the inhabitants. Well, those Aswang will make hasty tracks when Maz's monster spackle fills those cracks. Strict limit of 2 containers per order due to supply chain shortages.
So you're going to retire from podcasting. You're going to go be a Filipino crack spackler.
Crack spackler.
Or crack spackler
in the
Philippines.
There you go. It was wonderful working with you, though.
It sounds like a nice life.
Yeah. So
just spackling and hanging out on the beach.
Yeah, I think it's going to be
great. I can dig it, man. If you need a partner, let me know.
All right. So we can
keep podcasting.
We can keep podcasting there. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot to do.
Oh, we can maybe find some Aswang to interview.
Tons of work to do. Yeah. Don't make a click sound. That's the tick tick.
Excuse me.
You just drew Now it sounded loud, so it's probably far away. Oh shit. And to end this on something totally annoying for you, and this goes back to Cocaine Bear.
Oh no.
To the Filipino, there's a place called Kokomo, where all the Aswang go to suck the goop out of some bro.
Kokomo's not a real place. Are you saying the Aswang's not a real thing?
I think actually Kokomo, I did my research.
Yeah.
Kokomo is a beach bar. And it's very confusing because everything else is geographical locations. But I looked into the original sources, Love's Journal, the original all the Beach Boy biographies, everything on the Beach Boys. And I believe, no, I didn't do that, but I believe it's a beach bar.
You think it's a Mai Tai bar?
Somebody just said that to me when we were talking. It's like, Kokomo's just a beach bar. And I was like, oh. So it really wasn't as much research
like Margaritaville.
as I made. Yeah. Which, again, doesn't make sense because the whole song's basically about geographic spots.
Right.
So why did they throw in a bar? They're singing about places, and then they...
Honestly, that makes it all click in my brain because all those places... Well, all those places, actual places they mentioned, would have a bar like that on the beach.
Yeah.
And so they're all Kokomo in a way.
Ooh, aren't we all Kokomo in a way?
Aren't they just all Kokomo then?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
You might have just fixed my problem with that song.
Still no cocaine bear, though. Let's stay away from that now.
It's much more
Let's
philosophically
agree that no more
pleasing.
cocaine bear. Yeah, then cocaine bear. Don't do it anymore.
Don't do cocaine anymore, or just cocaine bear?
Not
that I really do either one on a regular basis, but just to know.
Just note to self.
Note to self. No more cocaine bear.
No more cocaine bear. That's all I got. But next week, it's going to get really good.
Yeah, that Manangal sounds creepy.
Next week is a doozy.
Oh, and this is a two-parter, so we're not even doing our segments and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I
I'm
said.
Sitting here waiting for the segments to start, but we're not even doing it because this is just part one of a two-parter.
Said we'd do best defense, shifting the theories and some of those rest of that segments to part two.
All right, yeah, we haven't done a two-parter in a while. I'm not used to the change in format, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Finish this off with the flying torso Manangal next week, apparently with its guts flailing around in the sky.
Oh,
I have the crazy images in my brain already.
It's going to get crazy.
It's going to get weird. That next one, I'm looking forward to it. So everyone, make sure to come on back around, join us for that. Anything else to add or subvert before we go, Moz?
Nope.
All right. Well, if you didn't get it on the first time around at the beginning of the episode, please hit all those happy little fun buttons on whatever platform you're on, the like and subscribe, and maybe share with some friends or whoever. Our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/monsterloretour. You can join for just $1 a month and get early access to all these episodes and their connected side trails. Side trails come out right along with the episode in the members area, so you don't have to wait for those compilations every few weeks. Other than that, we'll see you next week with an even more horrifying tale from the Philippines, apparently. Until then, have a good one, listener.
And we'll put out to sea where the merfolk will drown me. Yeah, the Agoy.
Yeah.
Like the Agoy.
Yeah.
Merfolk class.
Shut up!